Hey guys, thanks a lot for joining us here on SEO Cheat Guides. Today I've got an interview with Alex, and he's from Bamboo Bot, and I am going to be asking him about his experience in digital marketing. He has a long and storied history, so without further ado, I will get started. So Alex, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and what your background is?
So, bit about myself. I've been in digital marketing for over a decade now, just over a decade. So my biggest background is actually in sales, believe it or not.
Okay.
So from when I was a little one running around in the streets, selling like Christmas trees and cookies and all that stuff, I just fell in love with sales. And so sales is honestly what like propelled me into the industry. Is just between that and my parents being like working at IBM. So I was kind of a geek, so that combo is what got me into it.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So when you say you came from a sales background, have you ever worked like formally at like flipping photocopiers or computers or cell phones or
All the above. All
all
the
of the
above.
above?
All the above. Yeah, I've done a number of different sales jobs, whether that be door to door, cold calling, I mean everything from cell phone repair to the list is long on
Long.
what I've sold. Everything from cars to a bunch of different stuff. So
Awesome. So what are you selling today?
So I'm not selling anything today, which is great. Um, like I literally don't have to do sales anymore because of what I do primarily, which is PPL or pay per lead. And so the nice thing there is I'm like, hey, I've got leads. You want them or not? Like there's no sales process in that.
Interesting.
So which makes life a lot easier.
I'm sure you've just piqued a lot of people's ears. So why don't you expand on it a little bit for those of us that are newer in the industry? Explain what PPL model would look like, what you'd be doing, and how you would go from the beginning to kind of get in the money where the magic happens.
So essentially, I do what every other SEO out there does is I build properties. Only the thing is I build properties for myself as opposed to a client, or so similar to kind of affiliate. Only the monetization strategy is leads, strict primarily in the form of phone calls. So if somebody visits a website, for instance, in a service-based industry, and they're looking for, say, a new roof, then they give me a call on my property, and that dials through to a partner that pays for that lead.
So you rank the property first, then you go in. So let's say you're in a city, whatever, Chicago, you'd rank in Chicago. You'd find a partner in Chicago who's going to service those leads. You're flipping the IP phone to their phone, they answer the call. You're tracking that call and then charging them every time they get a lead, like a call, or every time they get a client who's paying, in this example, for roofing.
Every time they get a call over 30 seconds, that's qualified, is how I get paid. But the one thing that's really important is that beginning part. I don't rank my properties first.
Okay.
So a lot of people do that, and they're like, okay, I'm going to put out all this money and all this time. I have to get this ranking. I have to get all my citations and blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
That's cool. But what I'd rather do is I'd rather go out and be like, hey, here's a roofing company, and you need 10 more leads a month. All right, you're going to pay me, let's say, at least $100 a lead, right? So that's $1,000. Write me a check for $1,000 for this month, and I'll deliver the 10 leads. That then gives me a month to deliver 10 leads to rank stuff and a budget to do so. So that's one of the big things when you scale is if you're scaling out of pocket, like it's a rough road. And so being able to scale with someone else's money and already having that guaranteed partner is a lot easier way to do things.
In that first month, are you using PPC at all to get the leads, or is it all just organic SEO?
See, that's the nice thing about PPL is they don't give a crap
Sure.
where it comes from. So it could be Craigslist. You can get 10 leads off Craigslist, just posting on Craigslist while you're waiting for your citation to, come through, and you haven't even built the site yet, or maybe you're doing, video marketing or PPC, whatever. Like it really just depends upon the industry and what you like, what whim you want to go on that day. So you really have a lot of flexibility.
So again, I'm just going to keep asking the questions on this because it's interesting to me. So when you're going in and you're selling them on the $1,000, and somebody writes you a check and you're saying I'm going to get you the 10 leads.
Mhm.
if for whatever reason you don't get 10 leads, does that roll over? Meaning, yeah, let's say you get them 6 this month. Do you get them the 4 the next and they only give you the 6, or how does that work? Like, are you offering a guarantee that you're going to get them 10 leads of 30 seconds or more of a phone call?
Yeah, so basically it'll roll over. I haven't really had that issue. I usually have the opposite issue where I
Okay.
send them too much. And in that, contract that we sign, what ends up happening is I say, hey, I'm going to get you 10 leads at this price. If I go over, then it's going to be this price because we didn't promise that. And so then they're not overwhelmed, but they have an agreed pricing structure. And let's say I don't hit 10. Well, I'm just going to keep sending you leads until we hit that 10 and not charge you until, you know, we go over that.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I really like that. Obviously, I mean, one of the things that I hear in this industry is people get so caught up in SEO thinking that that's the only form of traffic. But like you said, traffic is traffic, whether you paid for it,
Right.
whether it comes from Craigslist, Facebook, YouTube, doesn't really matter. If people want to buy, then, the service provider is happy to take their money, I'm sure.
Exactly.
So when you were getting into this, I mean, you've been doing this now for a while. So when you were first getting into this, what were some of the early challenges that you kind of encountered so that some of our people can kind of learn from your experience and hopefully avoid some of those mistakes?
So early challenges, I mean, I'm I'm not 88 like ADHD, but I act like it when it comes down to like projects.
Mhm.
Like if there's a shiny object or a new idea or whatever, like I'm all over it. And so being able to focus is probably the one thing that I would suggest like to anybody is like choose like build a system, choose one way to do things and focus and hone that before you go off going in a million directions. That's that's my biggest advice there because that was my biggest failure, honestly. And that's
Awesome.
why it's taken me so long to get to where I am now.
Okay. So would you recommend today, like, do you play in one niche? Like, so you use the example of roofing. You don't have to tell us your niche. I'm not asking that. But would you stay in roofing in different cities then because you'd get to know that niche and what traffic sources you can kind of use and how to convert them the best to get them to actually call in?
Yeah, so I do everything in mass. My theory is if you can't scale it, it's not worth my time. So what I'll do is I'll build out a national directory as an example,
Mhm.
right? And I'll do videos nationally, and I'll just cover everything for like whether that be Australia or the United States or Canada, wherever, right? Whatever I'm targeting. So I'll just do a whole entire freaking country. And the cool thing about that is you fairly quickly see hotspots
Yep.
that you're able to go after, and then you're kind of able to hone everything on a bigger scale, and you're playing with more partners, more money. It just makes everything a lot easier instead of trying to like really niche down and be like, okay, well, I'm doing these three towns for this one county, blah blah blah. Like a lot of people do it that way. The only problem is that you're not diversified nearly as much, in my opinion, by doing that. And so I like to have cushion.
So I mean, you're going broad in terms of countries, but
Right.
are you doing multiple kind of like service providers, or are you doing you specialize in a service provider and you
Oh,
know
no, no,
that
no.
service?
In regards to verticals, yeah. So I'm all over the place. I tend to typically stay in like service providers. So I've branched out into other areas. For instance, medical.
Yep.
Freaking hate medical. Everybody in medical, in my opinion, is either a dick or has a god complex. So I'm not a fan. So everybody doing, chiropractors and surgeons and stuff, y'all have fun. I ain't ever gonna be in your vertical.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I've lived in that world. Uh, so are you now that you've kind of scaled up and you figured out a system that works for you and you've got some experience in this, is this something now that you've ever added leverage to in terms of building a team around you to help you kind of do some of the tasks, or are you currently still a one-man show, you do everything and you just get it done because you have a system that works for you?
So it's kind of been a roller coaster, right? I expanded and then I decelerated with the whole team thing. I had an actual SEO agency I sold beginning of last year, and we had 83 VAs contractors inside of that agency. learned a lot about project management and all that different stuff, but it was just honestly, it just sucked, right? Having that many people.
Yep.
So I've basically been scaling down and replacing outsourcing with automation and trying to eliminate as much as possible because I was doing a lot of things that weren't really necessary. So trying to get down as lean as possible and really just focus on what matters and what makes money. And creating that system. So at this point right now, I literally have no outsourcers whatsoever. Everything is either 100% automated or I've eliminated everything that requires an outsourcer. So I spend minimal time. I'm talking like an hour a month on a site.
Okay.
So
Okay. So that's interesting. So you scaled back, and now you figured out how to automate the business. In terms of profitability, is the leverage there? Like you don't need a team in terms to get things done, just because you figured out how to scale it to country level without a team. So you're making more money without a team than you were with.
yes. So not only am I making more money without a team, but the nice thing is it's much easier to manage software than it is to manage people.
Gotcha.
Because software listens 100% of the time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So give us some of the lessons you've learned. So maybe like 3 lessons you've learned that you could share with the audience in terms of like the whole PPL experience. You're the first person I've talked to on the show that deals exclusively in PPL. So I mean, definitely some of the learning experiences that you have that would be beneficial to the audience.
Yeah. So, I mean, in regards to 3, biggest thing I could say is systems, like build a system. I guess the other is, redundant, but don't like, I see too many people get way too focused on what's the current way to rank something, and dive into, well, I have to have this tool or I have to have this training or I have to like, don't focus so much on the SEO necessarily or whatever, niche you're in. Like if it's PPC or whatever, like don't stick your nose so far into it. Focus on the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is what's going to make you money and ultimately going to like give you success in the long run, because all that little stuff, it changes over time, and as long as you stay on top of it, like you're golden. But the big difference is if you have that system, then, and you're not too like narrowly focused on a single traffic source, you're set. Aside from that, like, my biggest advice I wished I had been given
Yep.
was just, focus. It's that shiny object syndrome, man. It's a killer. It's a killer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You see it a lot. So I mean, definitely, I think that's a very important point for people to take away. So how do you currently divide your times in terms of major activities?
Honestly, a majority of my time spent selling. So the biggest thing you have to do with any sort of, digital marketing, whether that be you're selling logos or web design or SEO or PPC services or whatever, or in my case, I'm selling lead gen, is actually selling. Like you don't have a business unless you have customers. So, or clients or partners or whatever you want to call them.
Sure.
And so, my biggest thing is I do mass mail. So I mail about 10,000 a day, and that's my primary form of generating partners.
Yep.
Is mass mailing. And the nice thing about that is obviously in PPL, I don't have this big pitch. I don't have this huge funnel that I have to go through. It's like, you want it or not, because it's either you or your competitor, your call. Like, let me know. That's it.
So you're scraping a list of the niche. You're hitting the niche up. You're saying, "Hey, I've got leads. Do you want them? This is the deal."
Right.
And they're responding, "Yeah, I want them," or "No, I don't." And that's pretty much the extent of the funnel for you.
Kind of. It's a little more complicated than that because what I do is I vet them.
Okay.
So I put them through an actual funnel process. And I figure out, okay, are they licensed? Are they, this, that, and the other? What are their expectations? Making sure that I can meet those or exceed those, et cetera, et cetera. But by the time they come out of the end of the funnel, I've got all their information, their credit card, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm able to be like, hey, I'm gonna charge you for this. I need this signed, and we're set.
Interesting.
So I basically, the sales process is pretty much automated via a vetting funnel. But that all gets kicked off with the email. I send the email, they go through it, and that's it.
So you've got me curious now. So what is the average lifespan of a service provider that buys in and gets the 10 leads, let's say a month? Is it something that you see that they fall off after a certain amount of time because they either get to capacity, or is it?
Unfortunately, yes, that's something I've been playing with. I thought it was going to be a longer lifespan, but the problem is that I'm I'm ramping things up more than these small businesses are willing to like handle.
Sure.
So yeah, for instance, lawn care is a vertical that I just got out of, and these guys, they got set up for 3 years in advance, booked out 3 years. They're like,
We're
we're not
done.
even, we took the vinyl off our freaking, our trailers. Legitimately, they're like, we don't want any more work whatsoever.
Okay.
And so like kind of overwhelm them. They're super happy, but I'm like, well, okay, cool. Um, so I've been essentially, the nice thing is there's a ton of different areas, right? So it's like that can happen over here in this state, and another state could be booming.
Right.
So you've got a lot of flexibility that way. So it really just depends upon, okay, I did that with a half dozen, lawn maintenance guys, and I was like, these guys can't handle that much. It's not really worth my time to continue building out in this area if I'm going to keep, having 3-month cycles with these guys, you know? So that's something I'm still refining and working on.
Okay.
I'm playing in different niches about, once every month I'll jump into something new or give it a go or test, benchmark these different verticals, because there's so many different like niches within niches, that you can target, and it's just pretty much endless. So that's where my shiny object syndrome kind of has free reign. Like,
I was thinking it, but I wasn't going to say it. So anyone that's interested in this, who would you recommend? What are some resources you think people that are new to the whole PPL scene should either look up to, either take a course or read about? Anything that you would recommend that would be valuable for the newbies of the world that want to take a look at this opportunity?
well, my thing with so there's a lot of different sources out there. Like Joe Troyer has a bunch of stuff on PPL. There's Brian Bird over there at PPL Army. Like there's a lot of different PPL areas, but they always focus on just the PPL structure, or they don't focus on, the different traffic sources, or they don't focus on, partner generation. So I wouldn't say at this time there's really one like definitive source that I could recommend that covers everything in detail. But I mean, if your audience primarily, I'm assuming, is going to be pretty much SEO related, so they've kind of got that under wraps.
Right.
So pick and choose your source for figuring out the structure, and the rest is kind of cake.
Okay. So have you gone through multiple courses? I mean, in your journey to getting to where you are today, you've invested, I assume, in a couple of different courses that you mentioned here?
No.
No. Oh, okay. Oh, great.
No. I'm all self-taught on all that, so I haven't been through any of those courses or done anything like that. The nice thing about it is, like I said, I've been in this over a decade, so not a lot changes in regards to the basics.
Okay.
So it's just it's the angle that you're going after, right? It's the pitch more than anything. So that's really all I did. I found out about PPL a couple of years ago, and I was like, hey, this sounds cool because you own the property. You're not dealing with clients, because clients suck. Like, no two ways about it.
Yeah.
Even if you frame them perfectly, like it's
Yep.
still a client.
Yep.
And you're still building something for somebody else. So I was like, oh, this is pretty dang cool. Give it a go alongside a bunch of other projects that I had going, and worked out really well for me. And so I was like, I'm gonna scale this up and really give this some attention. And so that's what I did, and just refining stuff. I tend to do things. I disagree with most of the gurus out there. So when I take courses, I usually just get pissed. I'm like, you're stupid.
Right.
Or like, this could be done way better, or like reverse engineer stuff.
Sure.
So courses aren't typically my my friend. I'd much rather just get my hands dirty and figure shit out. Because you learn a lot more that way than trying to like follow somebody, in my opinion.
Well, we all have different skills, right? Like there's going to
Yeah,
be angles that you're going to see that work for you
right,
because of the way you think and won't work for somebody else. And when you're designing something, you're trying to cater to the mass, right? Like,
right.
and some of that gets watered out. It's just inevitable.
But
Um,
that's the trick right there is like those little things that you see as you're going through that like are specific to you.
yeah.
That's the key to success right there is those if you can, monetize those and systematize those things, all of a sudden that's something that a majority of people probably aren't going to be going after or see because you have a different perspective or angle on things. So that's your unique selling proposition essentially.
And a huge nugget for everybody watching because that's true in kind of everything, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it is a universal truth. So I'll end it with one last question, kind of just an interesting question I got from Tim Ferriss's book. So, what purchase of $100 or less most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months? What did you spend $100 on that you're super psyched about?
So this sounds stupid, but I got an invert table. One of the ones where they like dangle you by your feet upside down.
Oh, cool.
And it's the best thing in the morning. Like jump into that and hang for like, a couple of minutes or whatever, gets everything circulating. And I love the thing. Like I'm so stoked about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Alex, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us here on SEO Cheat Guides. If you guys got something out of this, definitely hit the subscribe button below for future videos, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thanks.